Welcome to another episode of Three Men and a War Game. I'm Paul, and I find it really spooky that they haven't made Guillermo del Toro's Haunted Mansion movie.
Oh, it's a good one. I'm Kevin, and I've been reading a shitload of Junji Ito.
And this is Potter, and I'm super into Korn's Kidnap the Santa Claus remake right now.
All right.
The what?
It's a song, Korn.
Oh.
Santa Claus.
A bunch of metal bands and some other artists went through and did covers of the entire Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack, and Korn's Kidnap the Santa Claus has been in my head for weeks now.
Oh, is that why I saw a video on YouTube of people playing the Christmas Town song or whatever?
Probably.
Okay. So, yeah. Cool.
So tonight, topic of conversation, we are going to, surprise, talk about Infinity.
Ooh.
But specifically, the rules are out for N4. We've got the books in front of us, so we are going to be going through the N4 rules.
Well, maybe not going through all the rules. We're through our perspective, right?
Right.
We'll be talking about N4 and why we're excited about it and stuff like that. I think if we would sound like chumps if we went through the rules.
Yeah. If you want to hear people going through the rules, go listen to Mayacast
or White Noise. Yeah.
Tom and Kip did that. That's not our shtick.
We play way too many games to do that.
So hobby progress, huh? What have you guys been up to?
Yeah, hobby progress. So I'll go first. I've been painting, in October, I've been painting Crisis Protocol miniatures. So thus far, I painted Miles and I painted Agent Black Widow. And then over the last 2 weeks, I got into the spooky mindset and I started painting both Green Goblin and Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I love that nice. October dropped and you're suddenly painting Green Goblin. I thought that was
brilliant. I have to. If I'm going to be carving pumpkins, I need to paint the guy throwing pumpkins.
Hell yeah.
Dude, you did a great job on them too.
How about you, Potter? What you been hobbying?
I've not been doing too much painting, surprise, but I've been trying to catch up on my MCP backlog of models to build. I got Doctor Strange and Wong. They're built now. My kids got Miles and Spider Ghost. So I worked with them and built them, and then I picked up Daredevil and Bullseye the other day. So I got those built. Nice. Painting side of things, I got my first tag for N4. Got him all built up, and I do have him fully base coated. He has all of his base coats on him, so now it's just going through the premise of bringing those up to those highlights and making them look good at this point.
He looks cool already, man. That Seraph is a rad model.
Yeah, I really liked it when I built the model, and then getting my paint scheme on it has really made it come alive for me. So I'm super excited to start getting some paint on it.
Yeah, it looks really good, man. I'm excited to see how that ends up.
Yeah, so he's going to go on the table Wednesday, but he won't be fully painted by then. But I've got a game scheduled for Wednesday, so that'll be my first game of N4, nice. And my first game with a tag. So it's going to be fun.
Nice, that's exciting. Yeah. Let's see. For me, assuming you're done, you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
I have nothing else to contribute.
All right. For me, I did finish painting my Morat and got it submitted into the Mayacast painting competition. It was without a doubt the worst entry of the bunch. Aww. However, I finished it. That's what matters. Mm-hmm. And I did not win anything, but that's okay. I won the joy of a painted model.
Yep.
And then
it motivated you through it.
Exactly. It kept me going and getting her painted up and done. So I'm totally stoked about that. And it also gave me the chance to test out how I want the Morats to look. And I'm very happy with how they look and how they'll blend into the overall combined army scheme that I'm going for. But then after I finished that, I jumped right into, much like Chris, I'm painting my overdrawn tag for combined because
it's tag season.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have a tag and have tags be seemingly useful.
Yep.
So I decided that was going to be next, even though I'm like, oh, there's plenty of smaller things that I should be painting and then use this guy as motivation to get through them, but I couldn't wait.
These tags are just too nice of showpiece, centerpiece models to not get some paint on them, man.
Yeah, that's why I'm really stoked that it seems like they will see more table time in general in N4 as we get into that today. Because they've always been out there and they've never really been used, and I think they can really offer a reason for people to come look at Infinity on the table other than just the massive amounts of terrain.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, guys. I'm a little bit jealous of your guys' singular focus in Infinity. Oh, man. I wish I could do it.
Well, you're MCPing and you're also doing your, whatchamacallit, your Kings of War, right?
Yeah. And then also I've got, a couple Infinity models left to paint. Plus, I just, because I have a problem. I bought the Wayfarer starter for the Drowned Earth.
Oh, and I forgot about that.
I based them and primed them, mostly just because there's a local dude who's interested in playing it. So in the case that we were going to be able to have a game at some point, I just wanted to have them at least based so that I could take them somewhere and play a game.
Right.
If that was going to pop off. I don't know when I'll get them painted. But I'm really excited to build a board for the Drowned Earth. Mostly because I think a Drowned Earth table also works well in Infinity. If you consider it from the position that like for me, what I would be doing is building a military base that was reclaimed by the jungle.
Right.
And there's plenty of reasons for an Infinity firefight to go down in that scenario. So.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like Infinity, everybody wants to build cities and stuff, but man, let's get out into the middle of nowhere. Let's have we have all these planets to explore. Let's get onto some jungle ones and
yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. Where my thinking is. And the Drowned Earth is another one of those Infinity Light style games, and the miniatures are just like, man, they're so good. Like
it's a pretty dense terrain setup as well too for Drowned Earth.
As dense or more dense than Infinity for the same reason, even because the shooting is super deadly and there are reaction mechanics.
Right.
Someday we'll talk about the Drowned Earth, but we have to talk about Carnival first.
The ultimate. Someday we'll get to this game.
Yeah, I know. We just keep kicking that can down the road. But guys, Infinity, let's bring it back on track here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, wait. Before we talk about Infinity, we do need to talk about a contest we want to run.
Let's not forget that.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to run a contest, and we're going to run it through January. So as soon as you listen to this, you have between now and the first of the year, probably, unless we extend the deadline a little bit, to get started. And we'll talk about it a little bit at each show. So we're going to be running a contest for Star Breach. And very soon, actually, we'll have a Star Breach episode out that you'll be able to hear. Unless it came out before this and time is weird. Anyway, we'll have that Star Breach episode out. But what it is that we've
Kevin, it should be the episode after this one. It'll come out after it.
Cool. All right. Anyway, Star Breach episode will be coming, and the contest will be a painting contest for making a warband in Star Breach, because we're excited about it. It's a great game. We think everyone should play it, and we think everyone playing with Sci-Fi Minis already has some sort of project plan that they could integrate as a warband. So just let this be a reason to start painting your Sci-Fi models and possibly a chance to win some really cool order dice. So what we have as prizes is that you'll be able to show off the models. We'll do a little Facebook show thing about them, and we'll parade them all on our Discord. The winner will get to choose between two of these special edition Star Breach dice sets, and then there will be a runner-up that we will give away by a lottery. So the rules for the thing. So what I want to say is, like, your average. I don't want to force people to do too much work to try to think up their warband and dream it up. So what I want is between 6 and 8 painted sci-fi miniatures with a solid, cohesive theme. And try to base them around something we could imagine as a Star Breach warband. You don't necessarily need to tell us what faction they belong to, but that'll be cool if you do. And if you want to write a little story about them, also that will be cool, and we will post it. But in general, we want at least 6 up to 8 models.
Yeah, I'm excited about
painted,
this.
And we want Yeah. So send us 4 pictures, basically. One of the 4 should be a before they're painted picture, and then the other 3 can be however you want, any kind of cool setup and posing you want, and send them to 3meninawargame at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and you'll hear more about it as we go. But that's the basics of it.
We'll talk about it each week, and we'll break down those bullet points each week. So Star Breach contest, win some dice, and possibly more prizes. The more entries we get, the more chances to throw prizes at you guys there will be. So please get your intent to submit and your submissions in, and the more submissions we get, the more prizes we'll have out outside of those order dice. And
let's throw a quick thank you out to Chris from Slow Death Games.
Yes, Chris from Slow Death Games is responsible for getting us the promotional dice to give out. So thank you, Chris. And that's it for now.
And they're also responsible for publishing the Starbreach copy, and also Wild in the Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So if you're a punk rock kid, you definitely want to check out that game.
Yeah, I would actually say that while this is a Starbreach contest, if you send us a painted Wild in the Streets gang, that also counts.
Yeah, we might have a different prize for you on that one, to be honest with you.
I do have different prizes. They're like shanks, miniature. They're like widgets. They're measuring widgets that are like shanks.
Perfect.
And I'll give away one of those in any color you want.
Get your punk rock shank.
But anyway, Star Breach, paint your Star Breach stuff, and we'll talk about that more cohesively week to week.
Yep.
So now Infinity, y'all. Infinity in 4.
Woo.
So this is going to be pretty free form compared to our normal conversations. I tried to write a rundown like 3 times, and it's very hard to talk about it because A, we haven't played N4, and B, none of us played a ton of N3, right? So the place we have to come from is that all of us have read a lot of the rules now, right? Like we're pretty head into the rule book. I read the full rule book on my vacation last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm pretty familiar with the rules, and I have one of my closest gaming buddies is really into it. Like he really wants to get games in over the winter, so I'm highly motivated to be ready to play. How about you guys? You guys have your first games coming up like this week, right?
Yep. Yeah, mine's Wednesday. Yours is what, tomorrow, Paul?
Yeah, I'm playing Tuesday. Yep, helping. Can't go to the event myself, but helping a friend get ready for it.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I can't go. We have a tournament coming up this weekend here in the local Raleigh area, and unfortunately, I have my kids this weekend, so I don't try and do those things when I've got them, and then so the same thing, helping out a friend get his one last practice game in before Saturday's tournament.
Cool. Right, that's awesome. So let's frame this discussion. So what Infinity, right? So this N4, when we say N4, one of the things I want to do, because we have a pretty general miniatures audience, and I've seen some concern about how the language of Infinity is very difficult. So one of the things that I want to use this episode for is to talk about how excited we are, talk about why we're excited, but also sort of maybe clear some of the confusion around the game, right? Because the game can be very hard to approach. Mm-hmm. So Infinity N4, and why it's called N4 is this is the 4th edition of the game, and it just launched. It's brand new. So this is like the best time to get into Infinity right now. Like this is a perfect time to get in because A, you have Code 1. And I will shout from the rooftops that Code 1 is the ideal way to get into N4. Like they said it for months leading into N4, but now that I've read the N4 rulebook, I totally understand why. And I can tell you in a couple really short sentences here, and what it really comes down to is that every single rule in Code 1 is part of N4. N4 is like built on if you think about it as 2 cars, right? Infinity is like the design aesthetic of it's like a Toyota Camry. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like the car. It gets you on the road. It gets you to the places. But the N4 is the souped up badass Lexus, right?
Yep.
Like the same engineering teams, the same like core philosophies of the quality of the car, but just all the bells and all the whistles.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, that's actually a very good analogy there.
Cool. Thank you. I just came up with it. I hope that works. The other thing, right, is that you don't have to unlearn anything. Like if you play a ton of Code 1, it all translates. There's no unlearn. It's not like it's like this in 4 except for this. Like it all translates.
Yeah, all you're doing if you started at Code 1, all you're doing is just adding in the now
more complexity.
The nuanced rules that are in there that are bolted on top of Code 1. So everything you will come into N4 already knowing how to play the core game.
Exactly. And the other thing I want to state too is that you don't have to stop playing Code 1. Like if you're comfortable in Code 1 and you look at the Infinity Rulebook and you're like, whoa.
Code 1 is still a ton of fun.
It's still Infinity, right? Yeah. But yeah, so that's the first part of the primer, is that you can step into this game very easily now. And there was before where there was a like solid vertical learning curve, like League of Legends style. Now there's this amazing ramp up in Code 1. So you can get the core skills and you can get comfortable in the system before you have to step into before you jump into the deep end. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really, really cool.
Yep. No, they did a really good job designing Code 1 going into N4. I think they took a lot of player feedback, and you can definitely tell a lot of love and care went into making sure that the transition between the two is very simple and easy for the player.
For sure. So one of you guys wrote book layout as a thing that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that was me.
So what do you want to talk about the book layout, Paul?
So one of the things that I wanted to mention is that they actually laid the book out in a fairly interesting way, I thought. And I don't know if you saw this, if you guys noticed it or not, but they're listed as modules. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So there's different modules for different aspects of the game. So it actually makes it fairly easy for you to find what you want.
If you want something concerned with what movement, you go to the movement module.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If you want combat, you go to the combat module. If you want skills and equipment, you go to the skills or the equipment or the command module.
Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about that, because I feel like especially with the bulk of Infinity, it would be fairly simple for the rulebook to get lost, right? For you to get lost in it. And I think that helps you not, right? With all that, just that little bit of extra information and breakdown. So I thought that was kind of important to at least bring up.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because even though it's a slimmer rulebook than the core N3 rulebook, it is still 135 pages. Now, there are some points in the book where you'll have two pages of examples to show you how a rules interaction works. So they're definitely taking the care to give you those examples and show you how they work, so that way there's no confusion when you get on the gaming table. So there are a couple of those spurred out the book, but still 135 pages. That's easy to get lost into. So it's definitely nice that they've got them broken out in those modules.
I would say 150. It's 150 before the glossary.
Well, right, but the thing is some of them is just like terrain placement and things like that. So where I don't look at that as rules. Right.
Fair enough.
Because I think the other thing too is that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Just as saying. So some of the 150 is where the glossary starts, but then you have scenarios, you have terrain placement. To me, it ends where you have the terrain rules, which is the very end of the terrain rules. Is 135.
Yeah, 135. And also the thing to note that even with 135, and this isn't like a lot of people will be like, yeah, the rule book is 90 pages, but only 15 of it are rules, and then there's a lot of big pictures. Like, nah, motherfucker, it's like 100 pages solid of rules.
It is. No, it is, and it's not overwhelming because of the way that they do it, where they take this kind of like PowerPoint box presentation within the pages. It's really easy disseminated. Yeah, like you can easily digest this because you can just go, I want to look at what does targeted state mean, and you can just go in and look at that box, and everything for targeted state is in that box.
Yeah, and truthfully, I think if you talk about it in that state, you don't even need to go that far into the rules. Like, you really only need to go 68 pages into the rule book, which is where the ammunition and weaponry start. And from there, you can start looking at your army.
Right.
And you can look at the profiles in your army and then start looking for the specific keywords that you want to understand. Mm-hmm. And you can start putting that picture together for yourself.
Yep.
You want to know a secret, Kevin? That's exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good way to read the rule book.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
I just
much
went
less
through.
intimidating.
I put some models that I thought I would be interested in playing fairly early on, and started just kind of flipping through to see what their special skills were.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was doing.
And you should read the first 68 pages though, because those are the pages that teach you actually how to play the game, and also hint hint, a lot of it is code 1.
Okay, I mean, I think the majority of it is code 1.
Yeah, it's code 1.
Now, let me also point out. Let me like I know we've talked about the good things, but since we're just let me get a weird thing about the rulebook, and this applies to code 1 as well. When you open up the book, there's a sample game.
Don't just ignore it. Pretend it's not there. Myacast says
Why?
it. I agree.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because
You don't need it.
even when you get
Yeah,
into
it's
it,
bad.
the rules aren't the same. Like we talk
They
about
aren't.
Code 1, it has everything you need, and it all applies to N4. And this sample game that's in both books.
It sucks. It's,
So that's like
2 through
15 pages
13.
right there of wasted space.
It's wasted. Yeah, they didn't need to put it in there. I agree. Also, there's a lot of duplicated information through the rulebook. As a person who read sort of straight through it, I found that there were a lot of places where you would read a rule and then it would explain a tertiary or ancillary rule off to the side of it, and then that rule would have its own call out later in the book. So there's also a lot of pages with duplicate information, but that's actually fine because it makes the book more easily read naturally. It's instead of flipping back and forth constantly, you can sort of just leaf through it and read it. But that might piss some people off because it's extra. It's basically putting the same block of text in multiple spots in a book rather than just having it in one place.
Yeah, my thing though is I'm okay with that because
so am
I'm
I.
just looking something up
Me
real
too.
quick and I can find all of the rules that are related to it.
I agree. I'm
I'm
not
fully
disagreeing
on
with
that.
that. I'm just saying I think that's not what some people want.
Sure.
Because different minds are different ways, and all three of us have ADD, right? Clinically. Yeah. So all three of us, that it helps. For a person whose mind is constantly wandering and not necessarily of prime focus, it's really nice that it's written the way that it is for me.
No, I agree with that because I was going to take it from the standpoint of you're reading just a regular book and the author introduces you something very small that will be expanded upon much later. I appreciate that, so I'm okay with it.
For sure.
Yep. Okay, cool. Those are actually all the points that I wanted us to hit on under that.
The only thing I don't like, I don't like the index because it's not an index.
There's no
It's
index.
not-
There's
it's
no
not
index.
an
There's
index.
I don't understand why game companies do this.
They
Thank you
call
for
it
bringing
an
that up.
index.
But can you imagine an index for this game?
No,
it would be cavernous. It would be so hard to read it. I actually prefer if somebody's why would it be hard to write an index? Let me tell you right now, the table of contents has over 200 callouts.
But that's the problem. That's why you need an index and not just a table of contents, because a table of contents isn't done alphabetically, so you can't just look up albedo and know what page it's on.
Yeah,
so
I can't go just
to
where
me
fire
that
teams.
argument means that it needs an index even more.
Right.
Yeah, but if you look at the table of contents, each module is alphabetical. If you go to equipment, the inside of equipment is alphabetical from 360 visor to X visor.
Right, and that's fine. But the thing is what if you're a new player and you don't know an albedo is equipment? You just heard one of your friends talk about it.
Fair. Online wiki.
Which they do have, and they are working on populating it with the N4 stuff. They're slowly working on it. It's good. It's good because it's done in the same format as the book, so it's easily it's easily translatable. It's basically the box of rules that are in the book. It's the same exact boxes on the wiki. It's done very well.
Cool.
All right, guys. So another thing that's cool that we wanted to talk about was the fluff book, and I think this is both of your first time purchasing an Infinity rulebook, so this might have caught you off guard.
It did. It caught me off guard.
I knew it was there, but it brought me so much joy.
Well, so I expected it to be the smaller book. I didn't expect it to be the bigger book.
Yeah,
It's
man.
the bigger book.
Like,
It's
and that
it's
made
always,
me happy. I was happy about it. It was
always
a good
the bigger
surprise.
book. Yeah. Me too. I don't have my physical N4 book yet. I will. And I'm very excited to read the N4 fluff. Like, super excited.
Man, it's a beautiful, beautiful fluff book. Like,
I haven't started
I think
yet.
it might be the best.
Man, I don't want to discredit people like Jervis Johnson, who write some of the best war game fluff that has ever been written. But the Infinity fluff is very good.
And I'm not even talking about the quality of fluff. I'm just talking
The book
about
itself.
the book itself, like the way it's laid out, the way it looks. And in all honesty, I was thinking about it and I'm like, all right, everybody loves the GW fluff, right? And everybody loves GW books, but why do I feel this book so much more? And I realized what it was.
What is it?
It's not dark, and there's not skulls on every fucking page. Like,
Fair enough.
I mean,
I understand that's the aesthetic 40K's going for, but like, it really gave me a different feeling opening up the book, and it's not, the pages are white.
Oh,
They're
it's
not,
just
they're not
bright,
like gray
colorful.
and smoky.
It's just
You
color
don't want
drenched.
you don't want all your sci-fi to be grimdark. Sometimes you want some, expanse, some infinity kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Infinity is like the cross section of cyberpunk and anime, right? So,
And that's just it, and the other thing too is the pictures of all the miniatures that are in there. I love that they have like a balance between artwork and miniatures, and the pictures of the miniatures are super dynamic. Like, you feel like they're a snapshot from a battlefield, and again, comparing it to a GW book where everything's like trying to show you off the whole army. These pictures are showing off 2-3 models, so you really get to look at it.
Props to Carlos Bostria. Bostria is who takes all those photos. So if you know the hype man of Infinity,
Right.
the hype man is also the photographer, the miniature photographer.
Yeah, and it's glorious. I'm really impressed with it. I really like it, and it's kind of nice to not see skulls everywhere.
For sure. All right. So yeah, the fluff book, awesome, super awesome. So let's talk about some other stuff. Things that we know are notable differences from Code 1 to Infinity N4, right? So, and we want to take this time to also talk about some of the. I talked at the top of the show about the like nomenclature and the language of Infinity, and we'll talk about that now a little bit. So a main difference between Code 1 and Infinity is that Infinity, as a hacking platform, it only basically introduces you to what hacking is.
Kevin, what is hacking, sir?
That's the thing. So if you imagine like the 180 years in the future or whatever, 185 years in the future, and there are, we're all connected by this massive network called the Maya net. It's called quadratic attack, or like quadratic sphere or whatever. So hacking are programs that individuals and remotes or AI controlled machines can operate, and they can do things like make enemies more visible to fellow troopers, or make it easier for drop troopers to identify drop zones, right? Things like that. And the way that this is all represented in the game mechanically is that you have characters who can hack, and you have a willpower statistic that you roll to essentially activate these programs on the battlefield. So if you think of it, it's just another way of attacking and defending.
So really, the way I always try to think of it and describe it to people is that it's essentially sci-fi magic.
That's what I was about to say.
It is magic.
I was like, it's Infinity's magic system.
I mean, that's that famous thing, right? Like, good technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, it is definitely magic, if you want to think of it that way. So if you can think about how magic works in other games, like mechanically how it's abstracted, that's basically how hacking works. Now, there are rules for hacking. So every hacker has what's called a zone of control, and really every model has a zone of control, which extends 8 inches from the model in every direction, basically in a cylinder. And hackers can hack things that are in their zone of control or in the zone of control of repeaters, which are pieces of equipment that can be deployed onto the battlefield. And anything that's in those spaces is fair game to hack based on different rules that interlace in them. So when you hear people talking about Infinity and hacking, it's just the magic system for Infinity.
Yep, sci-fi and magic.
And how Code 1 differs is Code 1 you only have access to 2 programs, one of them to lock down an opponent and another to sort of light up opponents for your team members. It basically makes your opponent's models more visible. And in Infinity, you actually have 4 hacking devices, which are on your unit's profiles. That's another word you'll hear a lot, profiles. And when you hear that, an Infinity player say profile, a trooper in Infinity has a category. So we'll just go with a Pan-Oceania Fusilier as a standard thing. And when you find the Fusilier in the app, it has a main stat block, which gives you the equipment and core skills, and then a list of profiles for Fusiliers. And each profile can have different guns, and some have hacking programs. And what you'll see on these profiles is that hackers will be noted as having a hacking device or a killer hacking device, or the Evo hacking device, right? And each one of these is loaded with different hacking programs. And there is a single one sheet where it tells you exactly what kits have what and what each of those does.
I think one of the other things to point out here, Kevin, is that compared to the last edition, it's a whole different ballgame.
It's kind of different.
It's very different.
Very different.
But in a good way, right? Because
in a good way.
It ended up being fairly nitty gritty, like way too in the weeds, right? Like there were some programs that were so circumstantial that they
never got
really
used,
right.
Or there was another hacking program that basically did the same thing, so you never bothered with it. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, in 3 or previous editions too, you could bring hackers and then have your opponent bring an army that just wasn't hackable because it didn't have heavy infantry, remotes or tags, and then your hackers basically sit there and go, okay, well, I just spent points in this model for nothing now. But now there's rules they can use.
So now we're talking again, we're starting to say words that the casual listener is like, God damn it, more of this Infinity jibber jabber bullshit. So let's rewind the tape for a second here and run it back. Yep. So you said remotes, tags, heavy infantry, etc. So when you're saying that in Infinity, there are different classifications of troopers. So if you think about a game like Malifaux has not necessarily, they're not defined by the rules, but they are things that people say all the time. Like you have your beater or your scheme runner. And in a standard rank and flank game, you have a hammer or an anvil, right? And you can think of those as similar things in Infinity, but there are rules attached to them. So you have your light infantry, medium infantry, heavy infantry, remotes, and tags. And so those are like different classifications. Remotes are robots, tags are tactical armored gear or big-ass robots is another way to think of them. And then your different troopers, which is basically troopers with increasing armor and different levels of mobility, and also things that go along with them in the rules. Like heavy infantry troopers are always hackable, as an example. And so I just wanted to make sure we were defining what that means so that if someone's ever listening to it, people talk about Infinity again, they're not just like, God damn it. And as you look at profiles, every profile in Infinity will tell you, it'll say HI, MI, LI, tag, or REM for remote. So you know exactly what kind, or there's also one called peripheral, which is a little different, but you see them all and know exactly what they are. Basically based on the rules that go along with them.
Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to talk about that in context.
You're better at remembering that than I am, so no, you're good.
So guys, the next thing I want to talk about, like a big difference between Infinity and Code 1, is that the arsenal in Code 1 is pretty limited. Mm-hmm. You're basically limited to I would say the core guns, a couple special guns, and then mines, and only one kind of mine too, if I'm remembering correctly. So Infinity, you get the full spectrum of weapons. Like, so the cheat sheet for weapons in Code 1 is 1 sheet, and the cheat sheet for weapons in N4 is 4 pages. So there's just a lot more weapons. And the reason there are more weapons is because there are lots of cool special rules that go into weaponry in Infinity. Like, there's multiple kinds of ammunition. And there are lots of different modifiers and range bands in Infinity, because in Infinity, a thing you might not know if you don't play is that one of the primary ways that the game abstracts shooting at distances and what weapons are more effective is that there are range bands out to 8 inches, out to 16 inches, out to 32 inches, out to 48 inches, and out to 96 inches. And every one of those range bands, your weapons are either better or worse at. And so having this larger arsenal allows them to make this really cool coverage. And it makes list building really interesting because you're trying to bring weapons that cover your blind sides. You're trying to bring weapons that might be good against different kinds of defenses that your opponent might bring.
Yeah, one thing I just want to point out there real quick, Kevin, is that there is the wide variety of weapons in Code 1. I think a lot of what they reduced is the volume of ammo types. I think maybe more so than specifically the weapons, because I feel like when you're list building in Code 1, you're still taking into account all of the ranges and all that. I could be wrong.
I hear you, but like there's T2 weapons, Vulcan weapons, plasma weapons, the glue guns, emerats, fast pandas, like all flash pulse, all sorts of guns that aren't in Code 1.
Well, then
that are in 4.
Also remember Code 1 right now is only 4 factions, so they may not be including weapon profiles for that are specific to the other factions, because I know some factions have unique weapons to their faction.
Sure, and that's true. I just wanted to note, right, that there is one of the things, if you're looking at transitioning from Code 1 into N4, one of the things you're going to be playing with is a ton more weapons, and part of that is even just the fact that it has a whole other designation of weaponry, which is direct templates, which don't and impact templates, which don't really exist the same way as they do in N4. And things like suppressive and speculative fire, which we'll talk about also and talk about right now, don't exist in Code 1. And so speculative fire is exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability to fire at a target that you can't necessarily see. And you might be thinking like, well, what the hell is an example of that? An example of that is throwing a grenade. Right? You might throw a grenade over a wall, and that's speculative fire. And so since there is speculative fire, now you have the ability to have grenades, because you can't have grenades at all without rules for throwing them.
Right.
And so that's part of it. And then inside of grenades, like now you have, grenades that damage your enemies. You have grenades that damage your opponent's electronics. You have grenades that make smoke. Like there's just all sorts of cool stuff that N4 adds in, and like layers of complexity. But also I was talking about suppressive fire, which is the ability to sort of like put your guy in a corner that he's looking out and then be essentially laying down fire into that fire lane, making it oppressive for an opponent to walk through it.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. That is definitely something that is not Code 1, right? Because Code 1 tried to get rid of all of the things that you didn't, obligatory movements and stuff like that. So
right.
Yeah, I mean there are certain ones in there. I do know that suppressive fire is in Code 1, but you are correct.
It's not.
No, it is.
It's not.
It is. I'm looking at the Nokin's weapon profile right now for Code 1, and it's got the combi rifle trait suppressive fire.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think it was in the rule book.
Yeah, heavy machine guns. Yeah, heavy machine gun, marksman rifle, Spitfire all have suppressive fire.
Interesting. Sorry, that's a big mistake on my part. I would have sworn to you before we started recording that suppressive fire did not have a rule call out in Infinity in Code 1, and I'm looking at the weapon traits now, and none of the weapons say suppressive fire in the back of the rulebook, but either way, even if it is in there,
I mean, it's on their app. I mean, it may not have a rule for it, but for some reason, it's on their app. So I'm just looking at their app.
Did you switch into Code 1 mode, or are you still in N4
No,
mode?
I made sure I'm in Code 1. I am only seeing 4 factions.
That might be a glitch in the app.
And it very well could be. So that's why I'm trying to put this caveat that I am in the app. I'm not in the rulebook. I'm just looking at the app, and I'm looking at Pano, Nis, or Nokin with Spitfire, or sorry, not the Spitfire, the combi rifle, and it says trait suppressive fire. So again,
interesting. Yeah, I don't think suppressive fire is in Code 1, but we'll just leave that ambiguous, I guess. I don't think it is, but
as much stuff as they had to fix out of the app already when the N4 launched, I would not be surprised if there's maybe a mistake.
A couple mistakes
they
in there.
They got a lot that they're going through and a lot that they're doing right now. So
let's talk about another thing in Infinity and in N4 that's a difference from Code 1, and this will trickle down into a couple different topics, and that's in command tokens. So at the start of a game of N4, you're given a balance of 4 command tokens, and there are some troop profiles that give you additional command tokens, but in general you get 4. And these are an additional resource that you use through your turns in a game of Infinity to do things like re-roll certain kinds of rolls or do what's called coordinated orders, which is what allows you to basically form a small combat group that can all perform the same action at once. It can let you turn irregular orders into regular orders. And so this is a difference between N4 and Code 1. And also another piece of terminology that you'll hear. So in Infinity, the way Infinity works, it's an I go, you go system. So I take a turn, activate all my models. You take a turn, activate all your models. And what you do is you generate orders for your command groups, which are groups of models. In Infinity, you only have one command group. So you generate order tokens for each model. And those order tokens can be spent for any model because these are what are called regular orders. And those regular orders can be spent on any model in your force. So you might bring 10 models, you might generate 10 orders, but you can use all 10 of those orders on one unit. And in N4, there are irregular models. And irregular models don't generate regular orders normally. And those irregular orders have to be spent on them. So if you have a troop who's a regular, it doesn't make an order that anyone can spend. They make an order that only they can spend. But this gives Corvus Belli a really cool thing to lean on, because what they can do is they can make some troopers that are so amazing, they generate both a regular order and an irregular order. Mm-hmm. And other things too, right? So and these command tokens, well, again, one of those things you can do with them is you can flip irregular orders into regular orders.
Right.
But that also brings us into command groups. And so command groups are you have to spend regular orders on the command group, right? So I might bring 13 models, 7 in one command group, 5 in one, and all 13 of those troops might generate regular orders, but the 7 that are generated for the command group of 7, only that command group can use, and then the group of 5 can only use those 5. And that's an important distinction. But yeah, do you guys have anything to add for command tokens and how cool they are?
Now I haven't looked at the rules for command tokens yet. But do they still have the ability to affect your opponent's order pools, or did they get rid of that?
So at the beginning of a turn, you can spend an order. And there are a couple things that you can do, right? Well, you can remove 2 regular orders from your orders pool for the turn. You can prevent the adversary from using more than one command token, or you can put one of your troopers on suppressive fire for the first turn.
That's a new one to enforce.
That is a new one.
I remember that one being new, but I wasn't sure if because I know that there were some people talking about that they hoped that they weren't going to get rid of that, and some people wanted the 2 orders taken away thing gone. So I wasn't sure if they got rid of that.
Basically there's 3 different kinds of uses for them: strategic uses, executive uses, and tactical uses. And those are the strategic uses we talked about. Right. So there's also executive uses, which are you can mid-game change a trooper from one command group to another, and you can also cancel possession is another thing you can do with one. So rather than having to like cancel possession with with an engineer or hacker or whatever, I don't remember the way you normally cancel possessed. You can use a command token to cancel it.
Gotcha. So for anybody keeping track, suppressive is not in Code 1.
All right.
Yay!
Cool. There was an error in the app.
Error in the app. So Chops was not wrong. I did not contradict nobody.
Cool. It's all good. So another difference that has added and a little bit more complexity is sectorial armies and fire teams. And this is going to be, I think, sectorial is probably the term as a person who's coming into Infinity that you get hit with immediately and are immediately like, what the fuck? It's just one of those things that you always hear sectorial. So what does this mean? As a person who's getting into the game,
Can I answer?
Please do.
Okay. Short answer. They're sub-factions.
Correct.
It's all the sectorial is a sub-faction. So the general term for the main faction is vanilla, but in the sub-factions, in the sectorials, you get different options as far as your army build lists, right? So, for example, Combined Army that I play, since they're a group, a mixed group of aliens, each sectoral is basically an army dedicated to the different types of aliens that are part of the hegemony. Yeah.
Hegemony.
Yeah. What they said. So and then it allows you to have, and there might be some models that cross over between the different sectorals, but they might also have different numbers that you can bring them in.
Right.
So it does some really cool stuff. It takes what War Machine is trying to do with themeless and just steps it up a notch.
Yeah, and the cool thing too is that your certain sectorials may have access to mercenary models or models from other factions that the vanilla army doesn't. Like, I'll take Cosmoflot from Ariadna as a prime example. They get Knights of Santiago, but Ariadna as an army does not. And Knights of Santiago are a Pan-Oceanum unit. So that's a prime example of one of your sectorials getting an option from a completely different faction that the rest of your army does not get. The other cool thing that sectorials do as well too is they allow you to develop what's called fire teams. These are teams that are either from two models, 3 models, or 5 models. I believe is
it's 2, 3, 4, and 5.
2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I couldn't remember what the 4 was. I knew normals 5. Then you've got duos and Harrises. I knew were 3s, and I didn't know what 4 was.
I don't think there's specifically a 4.
There's a different but there's a bonus for having 5.
Right. So, and then what these essentially what these fire teams do is allow all those models to activate at the same exact time on one order token. Now,
with some limitations.
That's what I was about to get into. With some limitation, you have to denote a leader of the fire team, and the leader can be different every single time you activate the unit with an order token. So, and then that leader is the only one that's actually able to shoot in the active turn or return fire in the ARO turn. So when you're activating them, you have to plan wisely on who you're going to make that leader for that link team, for that fire team. And then, but there are bonuses.
Wait. I thought everybody got AROs in.
No. Unless
they do.
They do.
I thought all members of the fire team get arrows, but only the single member can do like firing actions.
Right. Okay. So that's what it was. That was my confusion. That's the firing action. The rest of them can still dodge or things like that.
Right. Only the team leader can do things like take a ballistic skill action.
Correct. So, but then the other thing is you'll get modifiers for depending on how big your link team is or your fire team is. You can get modifiers to your ballistic skills. You can get modifier to the burst. So with the amount of ammo you're shooting out of your gun. So like if a heavy machine gun is burst 4, if it's in a fire team that gives it the bonus for +1 burst, it now goes to burst 5. And then you can get your I think the max ballistic skill is +3. So if you're a ballistic skill 14 model and you've got that +3 modifier, now you're a 17. So there are some pluses and minuses to take from it. The fire teams are definitely an advanced rule. Corvus Belli themselves even say that it is an advanced rule.
Yeah, it is an advanced rule, but it also gives you cool advantages because it allows you to move. It allows you to spend a single order to move multiple units.
Yeah, I mean, so like if you've got a 5-man team, you've got one token moving 5 dudes.
Exactly.
That you're not having to spend a command token.
Only one of them is firing, right?
Correct.
Only because there's different kinds of actions, but only it's the support actions, which are like the fire actions and the hacking and beacons and mines and all that stuff, and only the fire team leader can do that. Right. Those actions. And also all the members of the fire team have to follow the same pattern, right? Like they can't all do different things.
And they have to stay in coherency with each other.
Yes, and there are limitations, but the fire teams are one of the principal reasons for taking a sectorial army. And the one I don't think either of you mentioned, you might have, but I was reading, is that there is a statistic in your profiles called availability, and that's how many numbers of a specific model you can take. And in vanilla, you might have a heavy infantry trooper that you can only take one of in an army list, but a sectorial might let you take 2 or 3 or even 4 of them.
Yeah, Paul did mention that one.
Yeah, you were reading.
Sorry.
So the other cool thing,
but you described it a little better. You went into more detail.
And I did forget about this. So like your models may gain special rules as well too. So the Ticklabang in vanilla does not have the religious trooper a rule, and I think there's one other rule it doesn't have, but when it goes into
military orders.
When it goes into military orders. Military orders it gains religious, and then there's one other special rule, and I don't have the rules for it in front of me, but it gets one other special rule. So that's another cool thing is they can gain or lose special rules depending on what sectorial they're a part of as well too. Which adds some flavor to them, which is really cool. And of course, even points costs can be different between the two, between vanilla and a sectorial.
Yep, and that covers the why you take sectorial armies and fire teams, and like again the sub faction and the benefits to taking the sub faction. So the next, I think, big noticeable difference and worth talking about is the incredible array of special skills, equipment, and common skills that are available in N4 over Code 1. And so basically Code 1, right, is this like, it's like the soul and the essence and all the rules that were necessary for the game to feel like Infinity, but almost nothing extra. So there are special rules, there are common rules, and there is equipment in Code 1. It's just an expanded list. And the best way to think about the amount of skills and what the skills and the breadth of skills available in N4 is that if you think about games that you've played and you think about a game being able to execute rules based on the premise of its theme, there's nothing better than Infinity. So if you think about a cool sci-fi rule, like, man, I wish that, we had not only smoke grenades, but like futuristic smoke grenades that even made it so the cool visors that these guys can't see through. Like there are rules for those things in the game. And also it's that every question has an answer. So generally in Infinity, you can't bring a list that counters everything, but there is something for everything. Like every question that a piece of equipment poses, there is another thing that answers that question. Right. And that's what I think part of what the genius of the balance of the game is. And each of the factions is just a different combination of the rules that the troopers have access to. But man, there are a lot of extra special rules that are in N4.
Yeah, there's
as opposed to
several pages of
Code 1.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, we're talking about page 82 to page 126.
Yeah, I mean, that's what? That's 40 some odd pages right there
of special rules. Yep. So,
well, and it's presentation, right? Because if you think about it, Malifaux or any other game probably has just as many. They just stick them on a card, so not everybody has to worry about them.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. If all of the rules in Malifaux and all the special rules were printed in the book would be just as long.
Right.
Like easily as long.
Yeah, so like Kevin said at the beginning of the show, like don't don't let the size of it be daunting. Like, definitely sit down the models for your faction and look up at those rules, because those 40 pages are special rules for every single model in the game. So you're covering, 8 prime factions plus all their sectorials.
Yeah, you need to read pages. So if you wanted to play Infinity and you've played Code 1, right? You need to skim pages 15 through 60, 68. And then the rest of it, you just start looking at your troopers and then start finding the rules in the rule book.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much everything we had written that we wanted to talk about. So if you guys have more topics you want to discuss, what do you guys want to get into?
I'm just curious overall, like, what your opinion is on it. I mean, I'm assuming it's positive, but I'm kind of curious as to what you think.
So I've said it before, and I don't know if I've said it on in chat before or on like out loud when we're talking. In that, I think if I had found Infinity as my first or even second miniatures war game, I don't think I'd be playing as many games as I'm playing. And part of me wonders if, like, part of the reason I'm still like dabbling in 5 systems is that I just haven't had a chance to start playing Infinity, because this is the kind of game that, like, my brain just loves. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so much to chew on. If I think about it, it's like the miniatures equivalent of World of Warcraft. Like, I just want to swim in this game, like, learn and understand all of the subsystems and how everything works, and list build and get everything, like, sort of like running the exact way I want to run it. Yeah, overwhelmingly positive. Like, I'm extremely excited about Infinity.
Yeah, and that's I think I talked about it before, but that's just all added bonus, right? Like, that's all extra for your extra value for your dollar, right? If the more you're thinking about it when you're not actually playing, or the higher drive you have to paint your miniatures, that's all added value.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really cool too is, like, a lot of the games we play, like, supporting them is like you're basically supporting a small team of artists, which also feels cool. This is like sort of related to what you just said, but maybe often on a left turn a little. And the only thing they ask you for is money for the models. Right. And the reason that I say that, and I want to make that important, is that in this hobby, there are so many ways to spend money, and so many ways that companies try to get your money with, like, extra tokens or big books and all sorts of shit. And the only thing that they're asking you for is to buy the models. If they the Corvus Belli literally gives you everything else.
Yeah, like yes, we're talking about having the physical rulebook and all that. If that's not your game, if that's not your thing, you can go download it.
Yeah, it's online.
It's all
for free.
Everything for the game is free except the models, and they even tell you to proxy their models.
Yes.
So they're not only are they saying, like, please just support us by buying our models, but you don't even have to buy that many, because their proxy rules are like, it's basically you can proxy any model as long as it has the same size base.
Same size base and silhouette.
And silhouette.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement they have. And that was, for me, as someone that hates proxying, that's been something I've had to hugely wrap my head around in this game, and be okay with. And I don't Go ahead.
The reason for that, though, if you think about it, is totally practical, because if Corvus Belli would have to manufacture thousands of models.
Oh, they would, like, because the amount of different weapon profiles that they have, like,
yeah,
and that's where, like, I've started to try and gravitate towards picking up models that just, like, have maybe just close combat weapons in their hands and no ranged weapons, because then I can go, they got whatever ranged weapon I want them to have. And it's super simple.
Well, that's why they have those, right? Like, that's the sole purpose of that type of miniature.
It's easy for my brain to grasp on them.
Yeah, if you see a model, so this is a tip too, and you might hear people say spec ops as another thing that you hear, and it's a term that Infinity players will throw around. But if you see a spec ops model, that's what the models are. Like, spec ops models are meant to be proxied as other things. That is literally the only reason they're designed. is so that you can use them for whatever you need to use them for in your army.
Yep.
So yeah.
Potter, how about you? What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
I mean, I struggled with N3 when I was first introduced to it. Maybe 3 years ago, and coming back to it pre-COVID, getting into picking up Pano and playing the few games of N3 that I had. I think a lot of my like for the game right now is because of the fact that I think I had a very good base to teach me coming back into N3. The guys in our local community that are building it here have been very patient, and they've been very understanding, and they've been great teachers. I think had I had that 3 years ago, I think I'd be exactly where Kevin is right now, and I would not be playing as many other games as I would. I would just be basically playing Infinity. I've thoroughly enjoyed the game. The game is thematic as hell. It's a ton of fun. You can feel down in the dirts 1 second and then you're on top the next second. This game is brutal. It's meant to be that way. You're going to lose a lot of models, and so. But the thing is that next time that it's your active turn, you are going to cause your opponent to lose almost the same amount of models. It's just a brutal game, and it's fun. It's very back and forth. It feels balanced. I am just enjoying the hell out of this game.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how that goes, that back and forth. It's just like even when you think you're out of it at the beginning of the game and it turns out you're not, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And there's not many games where you get that. Like, there's so many games out there where I feel like, either like, I will say this, to this day, 40K is very much whoever gets to go first usually wins the game. War Machine, whoever gets that Alpha Strike off first usually wins the game. This game is not that way. There were games you and I have played and through the Code 1 experience where one of us was up at the end of our active turn and killed a bunch, like 3-4 models off of our opponent's table. But then the next turn we just lost about as much, and then we ended up losing the game. Like there's a very good ebb and flow to this game.
Damn D20s is a motherfucker.
Yeah, man. They are. They are either hot or they're not.
I mean, and also like the ARO system is like so the thing that I like about Infinity, and I think my favorite thing, and I've had this discussion with a friend that I've played with, is that when it's your turn, there is almost never a right answer. Like you just have 17 wrong answers, and you have to pick the best wrong answer.
It can feel that way, yeah.
But that's not bad, right? The thing that I'm trying to convey there is that this game is full of meaningful and difficult player choices.
Right, which is exactly what you want.
You do. The reason I play miniatures games, like I'm not going to speak for you guys, but the reason I play miniatures games is because of all of the tabletop games, they generally support the most difficult and meaningful player choices because of the like free-form nature of the way that the movement and interaction works in these games. And Infinity capitalizes on that to the absolute nth degree, if you will.
Yep.
It's just insane how deep the game is and how difficult it makes itself, like as just a decision space. It's just a huge decision space and all sorts of things to keep track of. And because of that, it also, it's like, so this is another left turn. It's a very personable game. Like when you play Infinity, you have to be engaged in talking to your opponent. The rules, the game itself, the flow of the game demands it. There isn't a game as interactive. Like Malifaux might be close, but there just isn't anything as back and forth as Infinity. It just does not exist outside of the game.
Yeah, because you're always having to signal your intent and always talk to your opponent about what your intent is, and how your opponent will be able to react to your intent, and then you can change it. Like, yeah, there's so much actual talking. So if you're an introvert and you really don't like talking to people, and you just want to sit there on your turn, probably don't play Infinity.
You'll either have a bad time or cause your opponent to have a bad time.
I mean, I'm introverted, but I enjoy this game. So
yeah, it's the game, but the game it's not like bad talking.
No,
right?
it's like not. No.
It's but when Corvus Belli says it's always your turn in Infinity, they really mean it. Like even when it's not your active turn, as long as you didn't completely fuck up on your last turn, everything your opponent does is as important for you because all of your models can react. I should say all of your models have the potential to be able to react based on where they are to your opponent's movements and what they do. Whether it's your hackers or your snipers or people that you've put in firing lanes, right? And because of that back and forth, it just creates this game that's intensely conversational.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why. So so let's talk about this real quick. We've all been through edition changes, right? In different games, and usually they go to shit pretty quick. Whether they're poorly received, or the company does something dumb, or the people, or people are just cranky and bitter nerds, as we will get, and just complaining. And I've seen very little negativity towards this edition change. I think this is probably, in all my years of gaming, the smoothest I've ever seen a transition in a miniatures game.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a little bit of salt, but you can't avoid it on the internet, right? The internet is just like a salt-fueled hate device. So
sure, I will say that I don't think that there's been a lot of negativity towards the specific rules that I've seen in terms of change.
Yeah, there's been some app bitching.
There's been some app, and then the limited insertion lists going for terminated. So essentially, for the listeners. Like as Kevin said earlier, you get the two different command groups. Before, you could just make command groups as many as you wanted to until you got to...
You could fit your 300 points.
You fit your 300 points. Now, you can only have two command groups, and your second command group can only have...
No, you can have... it's any combination of 15 models.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, yes. You can only have a maximum up to 15 models, period, between your two different command groups. So, one could have 7, one could have 8, one could have 10, one could have 5. So, right. So that, I know there's a lot of people in there because there is there are a few sectorials and or factions out there that are traditional kind of horde armies where they're in a very skirmish level game. I know that there was, I think Caledonia, which is part of Ariadne, could get to something like 30 models.
Lots.
35 models, which is obscene for this scale of a game.
Right, but deft and crafty players have already pointed out to all of the sort of like frontline bitchers as the app has come out that Corvus Belli didn't just like one-to-one transfer the profiles and abilities. They have corrected list building, like lists for that. Like people like, my Ariadne list doesn't work. Like, no, Ariadne just works differently now. And they still have a lot of the same tools. They just you have to adjust slightly.
And I think one of the things they did overall with profiles is they stopped a lot of the models that like could take everything.
Right, yeah, they did do that too. Yep.
So, which I think is a good thing because that makes you have to make more decisions.
But we aren't playing the game yet. Like the wide community isn't like getting a ton of reps in yet, so we don't know a lot about
COVID.
Game balance, right? But you're right that the general response, I would say, the general response to the game has been positive.
Yeah. Like I said, I still think even with some negativity, I didn't say it was perfect, right? Even with the complaints or small amount of whining that's out there, it's still the smoothest transition I've ever seen.
It's been pretty positive.
Yeah, I mean,
I would agree with that.
I would relate this to maybe the Mark 1 to Mark 2 transfer of War Machine. That was probably the smoothest transition of an edition that I've seen until this. Because Mark 1 to Mark 2 was very smooth. It was very well received, and because Mark 2 is probably regarded as the best version of War Machine at the time. So I think this is probably just as smooth as that. And that was a long time ago as well, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a different world then.
Yeah. I mean, the internet isn't, you know what I'm trying to say, words, English, I don't speak it. My tongue doesn't want to work.
The internet can be a terrible place. All right, well, that's all I was thinking. I just was curious about that.
We've done that. We've given it the old college hour or whatever. I don't know. I just made up 2 different phrases. But we've talked for a commute. Oh
yeah.
So Infinity and 4. I basically gave my final thoughts. I'm really excited about Infinity. I don't. It's hard to know what the future holds, especially for someone like me who is impossible to pin down. I will say, I did play I played Malifaux almost exclusively for a couple years, and I could see very easily the potential for Infinity to be that game. Mm-hmm. But only time will tell for me. And so that my final thought is that I'm very excited, and we'll see how that excitement carries me through the next couple years of wargaming.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement, though, thinking multiple years.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see.
I mean, I'm with you on it. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you on it. It's just weird hearing it out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think I said this the other day when you and I played, Paul. Like, this is my game. Like, this is all I want to play right now.
So in my entire friendship with you guys and the time that we've spent blathering into microphones, I've legitimately never seen either of you dedicated to a game that the way you are Infinity right now. Never.
Yep.
Like, to me, this feels the way that I was dedicated to War Machine when I lived in DC.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that dedicated to this game.
And we'll see how that carries us forward. Right. I don't think we'll become an Infinity podcast.
No, I don't.
No, there's still too much fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
doesn't mean we can't have a sub show, a sectorial show.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I was like, wait, maybe there's a spinoff show coming, but yeah, I mean, no, we'll be still doing the same thing. I mean, I still love Crisis Protocol. I still love Legion. Same. I still want to play those games. I may just in a Soifi, I just may not play anything else besides those 4. And if you want to play those games with me, schedule them ahead of time, because pretty much the only thing I'm going to be bringing once gaming stores open is probably going to be Infinity, unless we schedule a game ahead of time. That's where I'm kind of at right now.
Yeah, Infinity is like it's going to be your number 1 game, right?
My number 1 and my number 2.
That's fair. I'll be there playing with you. Don't worry.
I mean, I'm 3 factions in for a game that I've got 5 games under my belt.
I'm so proud of myself hearing you guys talk about that, because I've only got the 1.
You're a jerk. And realistically, if you count sectorials, I'm way deeper in than Chris.
Oh, please don't break down.
Kind of embarrassing.
I've got two Pano sectorials, 1 Eugene sectorial, and then I've got an NA.
Yeah, I've got 2 factions as a consequence of buying my first one, right? Because the way I bought O12, I also bought Shazvasti, but really I'm playing O12, and that's my faction. So, but yeah. Anyway, final thoughts, Paul. We need yours.
I'm still painting Infinity models, so what's that tell you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So this is cool. I'm in. I'm really looking forward to getting more time, and I can't wait for COVID to be done.
Same.
That's really what it comes down to. Is COVID is making this far more difficult, because we'd know more about the game and our feelings on it because we'd be playing. So
we're playing a lot more than what we've gotten to.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I think that about rounds us out. Thank you for all of our patrons for supporting us and all of that jazz. We appreciate it. So if you want to find out how to support us, go to patreon.com/3meninawargame. Thank you to Static as a City for all of the wonderful music at the top and bottom of the show. And if you want to follow us on social media, it's 3 Men in a War Game. It's the number, not the word. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And so you can see a lot of the stuff that we are working on and people on our Discord are working on. And come join our Discord, because it's awesome. And you want to be hanging out there. Trust me. Because I want to hang out there. All right. So I think that wraps us up. thank you for listening.
Thanks. Bye. Anyway.
Yeah.